Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. In honour of International Women's Day, we're opening up a conversation about how writers portray the female experience thoughtfully and beyond familiar stereotypes. We'll be exploring the challenges, nuances, and the responsibilities of female writing characters, as well as the role of the storytelling that plays in shaping the narrative around womanhood. We're delighted to be joined by some of our talented Scott Editorial writers. We've got Nicole Smith, Gabriella Batel, and we've got Eisley Rose, who will not only share their thoughts on these topics, but also their own experiences as female writers. This is an open discussion, so we'd love to hear your perspectives too. So let's get started. So can I ask you just to introduce yourselves a little bit to everybody watching? So we start with, on my left, I've got Nicole.
Hi, I'm Nicole Smith. I am an acupuncturist. I've been in practice for 20 years this year. My practice is the Pampered Porcupine Acupuncture, but my first career was a writer. I started, I'm told, at 4 years old. I still have the first book I wrote when I was 5, and I'm just so grateful to have the gift of writing in my life, and I just love crafting stories.
Thank you, Nicole. And if I move round, I've got Gabriella.
Hi, so I'm Gabriella Batel, and I have published 2 books so far. You can see them right there. They are YA thrillers, and they were such a fun time to write. And writing is my first and foremost passion and, goal career-wise. But I'm also very, very interested in helping other people with their writing and getting their stories out there. So I also am the freelance publishing professional over at Legend Fiction, which is a writing organization specifically for Catholics who really want to, get our stories great and get them out into the world. And then also the up and coming Saga brand, which is a marketing company that will help anybody get the story of their brand out into the world. And so that's what I'm working on right now, as well as more and more books, because there's no end to the stories just kind of roaming around in there.
Thank you, Gabriella. And Eisley?
Hi, I'm Eisley Rose. I am a mother to 4 boys. We homeschool mainly because I have an issue with authority and I'm just lazy. I just don't want to have to deal with other people's schedules. It's going great, so I can't complain. I was a pediatric nurse pre-COVID. Then I had to deal with my mother passing and just never went back. It's been a crazy time since then. So I decided to just wing it and finally publish my book that I've been working on for 12 years. I kept having babies, and as you well know, newborns take a lot of work, and I never wanted to make them feel bad for needing me. So I just kept pushing my needs aside. And finally, when I had my final fourth, I was like, okay, now it's like it is time from The Lion King. It is my time. So my youngest is now 3, and I'm like, okay, mommy's gonna go do an author gig, and they're like, what? So it's really empowering for them to see a woman in a role outside of being mother, because I love being a mother, but I also very much miss that spark that I lost for the few years, for like 10 years, that you don't realize how time consuming it is. So yeah, I finally got to publish my first book, Glitch, last year. And so it took 12 years for the first one, and then it just 1 year for the next. So I just published my second one and I'm already on to book 3. It's nice because it's my escape. Like I said, I love my kids and I love homeschooling, but it's really nice to get out of these 4 walls and like go down to the library and concentrate on the people in my head that want their story told. So that's my story.
Thank you very much. Okay, so if I just throw us straight into then just a couple of questions. So how do you authentically capture the female voice while avoiding common stereotypes or the women written by a man trope? And I'm just going to throw that question out there to anybody who'd like to answer.
I just assumed we'd go in the same order.
Okay,
Is
then
that okay?
yeah,
I just don't want to interrupt anybody.
Yeah, no, that's fine, no problem.
So should I?
Nicole? Yeah.
This was an interesting question for me because I had never actually heard women written by a man trope. Maybe I'm not reading enough. So I feel like, yes, men and women are different. We have different parts, but I feel like that's where it should end. And because there are so many instances where a woman could be physically stronger than a man, or a man can be weaker than a woman, or a man can be more emotional and need more cuddly time versus a woman that's like, I got stuff to do, kind of a thing. So for me, it's most encouraging when those things are put aside and you write the character, you write your protagonist as they are. And yes, men and women are inherently different in different ways, but again, it really matters person to person. And so I love books that you don't even feel like that's an issue. It's a story with a character, with how they're going through whatever the author has thrown their way. And that's when I really just feel like I'm in the story rather than, we read to get away from things and to enjoy the creative experience. That's why we write also. And so it's refreshing to just read a story and read the protagonist as a person and not have to even deal with those stereotypes, which are like boulders in your path.
Mm. I know, you see quite a lot on social media, and I think it's great. I think it's weaning down a bit, the way we say kind of like the men writing women. I think, those men, and I don't want to completely, alienate all male writers out there. But it's that kind of common descriptions, isn't it? Where the woman's very much concerned, she's looking at her big boobs, and and it's
She's
the way
demure.
things jiggle. Yeah, oh, that's it. And it's that very much that
Hmm.
focused on the physical, where it's unlikely at that point where they're going to mention, a couple of stretch marks here and there, and and the anti-wrinkle cream that's needed at a certain point in time, and and I think that's what that kind of comes around to what you were saying, Nicole, about is that you want to just fall into the story, you want to fall into this character. And I think sometimes when you've got that, I find it hard, to call it a trope, but that kind of that male gaze kind of thing, is that you look and you think, well, is this really a woman? This isn't really what women do? And I think it can detach and actually make the character feel unbelievable. But then I suppose you're asking, is that unbelievable to a woman, or is it unbelievable to a man as well? Is that how they perceive us? Or so yeah.
Again, I guess it depends on the man. Some men probably, and a lot of men, no, they sometimes I find they perceive us with more dignity than maybe we even show ourselves sometimes. So
Yeah.
yeah.
I suppose they can be a little bit less harsh on, I suppose women can be quite hard on themselves as well, and I know we're kind of using gender a little bit here, but we can be. And I suppose sometimes it's nice for somebody to kind of, whether it be male or even female, to kind of stand back and look at the female character and actually see the beautified version, the part past the wrinkles, past the flaws, and actually see, our boobs jiggling as we run down the stairs, and and
Well,
perhaps that's what
I
we
can't
miss,
say I'm in a few groups on Facebook, a few writing and reading groups, and there are quite a few men written books that involve women, and the women in the group love to point out how inaccurate it is. It's like different body parts in a woman that just have to be. And I'm like, oh, yes, all women have boobs. Why does it matter how they jiggle when she runs? Like, it's just certain things like that that it's like you can tell when a male gaze is definitely written it versus a female, because as women we're like, yeah, that's just every day, it's fine, but it's very important apparently. So yeah, it just depends on the book and what the point is, because like certain romance authors that it is more sexualized, that's understandable. And still, but when you read a female written romance book, it is more emotional. They've done studies, and they've said like women are more emotional when it comes to sex and men are more physical. So it makes sense. Just depends, I guess, on the book you're looking for and what you're looking to read.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose that genre does play a massive part in it as well, doesn't it, really? So on what kind of, I suppose, what kind of female, and I suppose what kind of male, you're going to get at that point as well. So, Gabby?
Yeah, I think that both of you hit the nail on the head. I think that's exactly right, that you have to not think about, okay, I am writing a female character right now. I am writing this person, and people are different, and women are different. And I think that's where a big part of the issue comes from with the male gaze and with stereotypical women, is that they're all the same. They might have like little differences just to like prove that they're not the exact same insert character, but there are always these things that everybody comes back to in the stereotypes, and that is distracting because you notice it, because it doesn't feel real, because nobody in this world is the exact same across everybody. And so the reader's like, this doesn't feel normal, this doesn't feel right. It feels like this is a tool for the plot or a toy for the other character, and that's not what we're going for as authors, specifically as female authors trying to reflect our lives and the lives of women. Because again, women, we're all very different. We have different personalities. Some women are a little bit more quiet. Some are really, really bouncy. And so there's nothing wrong with like really bouncy, peppy characters, but there has to be then something else. There has to be more about this character as a person, to not just be the peppy girl. There has to be a completeness about her, and we will see that because there's more aspects, there's more angles. She's not always going to be peppy all the time. Nobody keeps the same emotion in every situation. So it depends on the author really knowing her character inside and out, so that each moment this character is going to respond to that moment the way that this character specifically would, not the way a woman would, or not the way a man would. Because I think there's also then that risk of people wanting to pendulum swing. And so it's like, okay, well, we want to avoid the manic pixie dream girl stereotype. Now we're going to only do the like hardened assassin warrior female trope. And those can be fun to read, but it's not the
It can be
same as
three-dimensional personalities for sure.
exactly.
Yeah, I'd like to say, if there's new writers or aspiring writers listening to this, when you look at some of the sheets or exercises that are given out, know your character kind of a thing, and there's lists of things to fill out. They don't talk about all this stereotypical stuff ever that I've ever seen.
Right.
It's what Gabby was saying. It's how would your character react to a situation? What is their personality like? What are their quirks like? Gender aside, what are they as a person like? And that's when you get a really robust, realistic, exciting character that you wish was real sometimes. Those are the kind of characters you fall in love with.
Absolutely. I completely agree with you. It's kind of that all-rounder, isn't it? And it's sometimes it is kind of like completely just separating, the whole gender of your character. And just Nicole just banged it on the head, is that how would your character react in a situation? And it doesn't matter at that point if they're male or female, because I think we've all, I think men could say this as well, that they might hit a certain stressful point, and they're having exactly the same reaction to how a woman would in a highly stressful situation, where it might be an overwhelming emotion, or it might come out in anger and frustration. And so I think we can all have exactly the same reactions to things as well. And I think it doesn't necessarily have to be gender specific to how you react in any one situation or another. So yeah, no, I agree. And I'd like to see a lot more, I suppose my character, I can be quite blunt and sarcastic when the mood calls for it. And I think that's something I'd like to see come out kind of more in female characters, but not where it goes to the extreme. I think whenever I've kind of seen that before, it's like that's the one thing that it gets kind of pinned on, whether it's a male or a female writing it. It's like we're kind of pinholing that character into this highly sarcastic character, and everything they do is sarcastic and blunt. And I think it's a variety of character traits, a variety of, as you said, how you react in different situations. So, I can be highly emotional in one situation, but I can be quite, sensible and stern and, completely derive any emotion whatsoever in other situations. So yeah, I think it's definitely a move gender away from it. Okay, before we kind of run off, I'll go with the next question. So what aspects of womanhood do you think are unrepresented in literature, and how do you approach them in your writing?
Strength and muscles.
What?
Strength and muscles. Every woman has to be a 5'3" petite little thing with no fat and big boobs and a skinny waist and have no muscles. Like, muscles are like the least attractive thing in a book. And apparently in real life that's not the case. Strength is sexy. It's amazing. It's incredible. It means you're still alive and you're here kicking it and you're doing great. But sorry, when I saw that question, I was like, my entire book series is about a Spartan woman. So like, that's
I'd
a
read
huge
that.
thing.
That's awesome.
Right? Thank you.
It's a good
But
read.
yeah, it's she's already read both of them. So yeah, I'm on to book 3 now. But we don't have enough representation in the world for strong women. And the men in my book, they come in and instead of swooping the women off their feet, they actually build them up and they say, no. I know what you're capable of. Let me help you seek revenge on these guys who took your life from you. I'm not going to do it for you. So it just is a huge thing for me. I'm a little bit passionate about it. Just a
That's
little bit.
awesome. And
Strong
it's so
women,
right
strong
because it's like,
girls.
it is frustrating to see all these like tiny little itty bitty girls the same way. And then somehow also they wind up being the most, like, I'm thinking of fantasy stories. They have like some chosen one warrior power, but they're still like little itty bitty tiny things. And it's like, that is not how any of us look. Like, very few of
No.
us are the way that is described. And there's so much more room for different opportunities in the story for different body types to be available, such as just normal body types.
Yep.
A little bit tall, maybe a little bit short and stout, maybe plus size, maybe, I don't know, maybe very, very tiny, not like just, the perfect 5'3" skinny, but like a really tiny. So I don't know, you're right. Or really tall and really skinny, or really tall and really strong.
Yep.
There's just so many other things. There's
And
so much
disabled
potential.
people. In my first book, I have a blind person. Like, representation
Yeah.
matters.
Yeah.
Also, I like
Absolutely.
to delve into the complexities of what's going on upstairs in their mind. That's what I'm most interested in. I love to write in deep POV, as Amy knows, and that's where I want to see what's going on with the character, regardless of what they see in the mirror. And of course, that has a play with a lot of characters. Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I really want to know, how are they internalizing and figuring out what they need to progress, through the story. And the complexity is missing a lot of times. It's maybe they'll throw in like, I'll season it with a little emotion for this strong character, or vice versa. But we're not that cut and dry. We're full of spice, we're full of sweet, we're full of all the senses. So I like it when you get that, like you use the word, Amy, well-rounded person. And then again, it feels more realistic and you can relate to the character so much more, because we all have those things that we struggle with. And I used to think that I had to write some big thing happening for it to be exciting. But really, when you delve into the little everyday and you bring out those details, and the reader can see how the character is interacting with what's being thrown at them, that's when it's just really great writing, in my opinion. Yeah, so the complexity could definitely be there more with a lot of writing.
I agree with you, and it's flaws. We've all got them, and we kind of want to see them as well. And I suppose we're all a bit fed up of picking up a book. And as you said, I won't use any names, but it's that the Bella character of the
The
sorry, I had to
17-year-old girl who's in high school that meets the loner boy. Yes.
yeah, but
Yep.
she's stumbles around, she's this, that, and the other, and it's like, okay,
She doesn't know
but
how
I
beautiful
can't.
she is.
Yeah, that's it. But I can't remember the last,
They
like,
know. They
constantly.
know.
Yeah, They do. But like on these Facebook groups now, you see where like people are asking, for recommendations of books. And I'm constantly seeing women actually asking, I want to see a more a well-rounded woman. I don't want to see, just some skinny woman with big boobs and, and this, that, and the other. And, I actually want to see a real woman. And you said about disabilities as well. And that I will give it like a little bit of a shout out to Colleen Hoover. And because obviously we try, we read a lot of kind of like what's big, so we kind of know what our writers are writing. And I went down a bit of the Colleen Hoover route because we had a lot of romances coming in at that time. And the one thing that really surprised me about her writing was that her characters weren't just flawed, but she was really kind of getting into all different characters. Her male in one of the books, the lead, who is, stunning guy, he's deaf, refuses, doesn't want to speak. So it's all ASL. And it's kind of like her story. She's got a female character that's, covered in burns. And it's the relationship that she builds up. And it's, as you said, it's not just that kind of superficial thing of him looking at going, oh, well, you're beautiful inside. It's that actual thing of them actually creating a relationship, them actually creating a bond together as two people rather than just what superficially can be seen. And yeah, so I've got to give her credit on that one, that it was just so nice just to see all these different aspects of life, because that's one of the reasons we read fiction, is to see all different characters from life and see things that we wouldn't normally have in our day-to-day life, or we'd like to experience more of different people. So yeah, I think to give you a rounder of that question of give us some some diversity of life and all the different kinds of people that we're gonna see, women or men, really. How do you navigate the balance between writing strong female characters and allowing them to have flaws, vulnerabilities, or moments of weakness? I think we might have kind of covered this subject a little bit, but how would you, talking to new writers who are watching this, what advice would you give them about including vulnerability and flaws without going over the top as such?
I guess I'll go. I would say think flaws strengthen not only your protagonist, but your writing, because perfection is not very interesting. So if we look at a protagonist that's in a perfect situation, all right, that's great. But gumption, drive, creativity, persistence under no matter what circumstance just opens up a plethora of options for the writing. And again, that's how you showcase the protagonist, those qualities. You have to have those flaws and how she or he overcomes them. Yeah, so it's what are they going to do in the moment that keeps you okay? What are they going? How are they going to react to this? And it's another thing we were mentioning, how the same response, a protagonist that's giving the same response is boring. But it's not only that, it's when you're not sure when your protagonist isn't sure what she's going to do or he's going to do, it's very realistic. How many times in a day are we like, oh, yep. No, the mind is constantly going over the different options and decisions and everything. And so when you show that in a small or a grand scale, I think it's very well done writing. Yeah.
I completely agree with you. Character arc all the way.
A rule of thumb that always helps me is, there are actually two rules of thumb. One is have a little bit of, so your main character has a certain characteristic, and it can either be kind of a general personality characteristic, or it can be a characteristic present in this specific situation, this specific moment. Make sure there's a little bit of the opposite in there, just even if it's just a little bit. So like, let's say this character is really, really confident most of the time, just because that happens to be this specific character. Make sure that there are moments where they're caught off guard. They're thrown off. They're not sure if they should be so confident in this moment. And that really helps round out a character. And then it both acknowledges aspects that can be traditionally feminine, like say a caring instinct or a very sensitive kind of reaction, but then it counterbalances it with just personhood, because all of us, let's take the confidence example. I think the most confident of us has moments of insecurity. I think there are moments where we're like, oh, usually I would be really, really into this, but this is throwing me off. I don't know what to do with this. Or even the inverse. The inverse is, let's say I'm a really, really shy character and I don't know. I'm not really confident in myself. I'm very insecure. I don't really want to take these forward steps. But then there are moments where this character wants to do something, where they feel strongly about something. And if you keep those together, if you keep one to counterbalance the other, even if it's not an equal balance, that really, really allows you to embrace the aspects of this character without falling into a stereotype, or without falling into then, like, again, a pendulum swing, like the reverse stereotype. And then my second rule of thumb is that one characteristic can take different forms in different situations. So let's keep going with confidence. So confidence in one situation could be a really, really boisterous, protective, in your face, or not even in your face, but just like very out there kind of a confidence. But then in another situation, that same confidence might be something a whole lot more quiet. Like, I'm confident enough in myself to stay quiet here when I need to be quiet. And so then to take that and say, let's do a traditionally feminine kind of characteristic. Let's say, again, like a sensitivity. So sensitivity in one moment, sure, it might be crying in a certain situation, but in another, that sensitivity could be, okay, this situation is serious. I need to take care of this person. I am, ignoring all the stimuli around me. I'm going to focus and I'm going to calmly take care of this situation because I don't want this person to be in pain. So it's still the same sensitivity. It's still that same characteristic, but it doesn't have to be in this constant, hysteria stereotype, or the I need to be taken care of constantly stereotype. And I think that's a lot of times where the stereotypes come from, is it's like the same, well, like we were saying before, the same reaction all the time, versus seeing the nuance and the diversity of just every minute to the next.
No, I completely agree with you. And you generally find like in a lot of like bases where you kind of see out and about in real life, and you take two women in a panic situation, and you generally find you can have one woman who's kind of running around like a headless chicken, like I don't know what to do, I don't know. And then there's always that one woman who's the complete opposite, generally, who will kind of stand and go, right, everybody calm down, this is what we do, while that other friend is kind of running loops around her, kind of screaming with her hands in the air. So you can literally have completely opposite traits and how they deal with the situation. But I think it's always kind of that approach to go with the headless chicken and kind of have her run around, and to be very connected to her emotions. So yeah, I think it's just wanting to see more kind of emotional diversity from women, really. Yeah, I agree. Eisley.
Yeah, I I'm a bit neurospicy. And so I don't actually write my characters. I don't follow a strict rule base, which is totally fine. I love that. But they kind of tell me their personality. I don't know. I just picture them and then I'm like, okay, how were they when they're born, to like what happened to them, which made them twisted? Because that always has to happen in a story. I mean, it's in real life. What happened to you?
I was just saying, Eisley, I've been meaning to mention like the backstory. That is something, I think, if there are new writers listening, that is something you definitely want to really spend some time thinking about, is the backstory. What has gone on with your protagonist up into the page one? That deserves due diligence. And sometimes, I like to, I don't plot everything out. Planter, I guess it's called. I like to see what my characters are going to tell me.
The pantser, the plotter.
Yeah, the planter. But I definitely love, I just love backstory. It is one thing that I spend a lot of time on. And I can use that filter, because that's a realistic filter to use, to see how the character will react. And that's why we are so emotionally diverse as individuals, is because we've been downloaded in all these things that have gone on prior do affect us at a neurological, emotional, every kind of level. So yeah, it's definitely helpful and exciting to really get into the backstory of your protagonist.
Completely agree with you. There's so much, and I'm sure I'm seeing Gabby smiling. No, she does it as well. It's definitely a massive thing that all writers should do. Your story might start technically on page 1, but the story started a long time before. The story technically started on the day they were born, or possibly even before, because parents and grandparents and things like that are always going to be involved. And I know it's a point of, okay, well, how far back should you go and where should you stop? And I think that's a writer's preference. But the more you know about where your character's been and what they've been through is going to help you to not only tell the story that they're in, but actually help your readers to connect with your characters, where you see them in a certain situation, you see them dealing with emotion in a certain way after a traumatic event or anything that happens, and you can relate to it. You can actually understand why they're having whatever emotional response that they're having, whether it be heightened or lowered, and it just makes, as you said, it's just that well-rounded character, and it's their life that makes it. So yes, top tip to all new writers out there: do your backstory, do your due diligence.
Yes.
Emotional damage.
Yes, absolutely. And we've all got it, male, female.
It's funny because one of Amy's editors, Natasha, has read my latest book, which is a multiple timeline story. And at first she's like, why is the mother like this? Like, what is going on? And then I rewind in a later chapter and
Perfect.
You see the mother at a younger age, and she's like, wow, and it's also where you place your information in the story that's important. If I placed that first, it wouldn't have.
I love finding out why.
Me too. It's like I search for books that do that, because there's wonderful. So then it's such a great payoff to the reader. Like, well, this character's kind of acting a little off. What's going on? And then when you get the rewind and you get the backstory, and it fills it in for what's going on with the protagonist, because of course the protagonist is impacted by all those around her or him, then it really just adds so much depth to the story. It's great. Yeah.
Very true. No, I completely agree with you, and I do like that idea, and I'm very much looking forward to getting my hands on that book, Nicole. I'm literally to Tash every day. I'm like, have you finished yet? And it's like, so yeah, I'm waiting. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that one. I know you've all got new ones coming, so I'm looking forward to that one. And Gabby, you've got things to finish off with number 3. Yeah.
Come again?
The things to finish off with number 3.
Oh yeah. So I got the third one to this one coming up, and then I got the new one, the fantasy mystery, coming up.
Oh,
wow.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Brilliant. Oh, okay. Right, before we delve into and we get going for the next hour just talking about what's coming our way, just to have a kind of look at your experiences really within the publishing industry, being a female writer. So what challenges have you faced, and even bias have you faced within the publishing industry, or just the literary world in general because of your gender? I'd like it to be the answer nothing, but I doubt it is.
That's me. I never made it that far.
I haven't experienced anything. No, so
that I'm aware of.
If I had, I would have.
Right? It could have been a secret.
Say again.
Amazing.
It could have been a secret. Like, I don't know if I ever did.
They were judging us behind our backs as they were reading our books.
Closed doors.
Yeah. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, my husband is one of my best beta readers, and he really lends a great perspective, a male perspective, but he's a man that is very in touch with his sensitive emotional side, but he's also a voracious reader. And I always say that when, if someone's listening and someone is giving you some slack, are they really even in the place, first of all, to do that? Like, what are
Right.
they even talking about? And don't listen to them. My entire life, I even when I started my acupuncture practice, everyone's like, well, you can't open up an office by yourself. You better go work in another office. I'm like, no, no.
That's awesome.
So
Yeah, exactly.
you do you, and as they say, and again, you're a person. So if people out there are treating you differently, that's on them, not on
Oh
you.
yeah. And then you
Yeah.
have to be okay with just like stepping away. Like I have also been very blessed that I haven't in direct correlation with my writing experienced anything like any prejudice or bias or anything with regard to my gender being a woman. But like I said, I'm a freelancer in publishing, and I've gotten some dicey customers sometime. And I'll just give a hint. Amy, you know this story. I was interacting with a guy, and my gut was just telling me that this was not going to go great places. So I was kind of politely trying to excuse myself from this business interaction, and I don't know this gentleman, and all of a sudden at the end of our conversation, he sends like a kissy heart face emoji. And so it's just
You too,
there are
bro.
going to be people who are just strange.
Yeah.
That it just
Yeah.
it's just and you have to be okay with just backing away, like letting it go, just like you said, Nicole. I mean, I could have been like, okay, well, I can tough it out. I can deal with this. And then who knows what I would have had to deal with after that. That was just kind of like a really strong indicator that, I had made the right decision. So like, thank you God for that. But just step away. Be okay to just block people out who are not seeing things truly. They're not seeing things the way that they are, which is we're people. We are, like you said, we have this like immense dignity about ourselves that is not just, hey, I'm the toy in the book with, a big bust line and stuff like that. And I think I think that's a great show of strength for ourselves as women in the real life. So, we're making our characters strong and we are being strong ourselves. We're just like, yeah, no, not taking that. I'm going to excuse myself from this because I don't need that extra thing to think about. I don't need that extra thing to care about. And again, not that we don't so like our feminine feelings, like our feminine trait of being in touch with our feelings. Yeah, it's gonna be uncomfortable. It's gonna sting when someone says you should write this, or you shouldn't do this because you're a woman. It's not gonna feel good hearing that, and that's okay. But then we're responding in a very strong way that's like, I disagree, and I'm gonna keep plugging along. I'm gonna keep doing my thing.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I think it's, if we were having this conversation, I nearly said 10 years ago, thinking that would be the 90s, but okay, so if we were having this
Oh no.
conversation 30 years ago. I know, I nearly did it then. It's like thinking the
Wah,
80s
wah.
was 20 years ago. I know.
Right.
Like, okay, I want to say I'm getting my little internal panic attack there. But we're having this conversation in the 90s, and it would be different, and there would be, I think there'd be a larger proportion of people out there that would have that attitude that Gabby was talking about then. But now I think that's more the minority rather than the majority. And I think we've kind of hopefully reached a point where we can say, well, they're not that many of them, so I'm just going to ignore them, and I'm going to deal with the mass of people who don't care if I'm female or if I'm male or what. But just to kind of throw out there with the male female thing, have you ever considered writing with your initials like J.K. Rowling?
No,
No.
not myself.
When I was trying to figure out my pen name, I was like, well, what should I do? Just trying to figure it out, but it didn't feel natural.
No.
Yeah,
I
I
feel
was
like
No.
it
like,
takes
well, if
the
they're gonna read
space
it, they're
away
gonna read
from
it. If
you
they
as an
don't, they don't.
author.
I mean, I sell as many books to men as I do women because they see the Lambda shield and they go, ooh, Spartans. And I'm like, that's right. And then when they read, because I have a thing up at my author events that says what it's about, and I'm like, it's actually about a female Spartan. And it follows, like, yes, there are men in the book, but she's the primary. And they're like, really? I've never heard of that. And I was, yeah. So it's just nice to have men be as I've literally sold to as many men as I have women, which is a huge feat, I feel like, as a female author. Um,
Hmm.
we do attract more women because our gaze is more feminine, and
Mhm.
it tends to be, I mean, if you even look at movies, the more action adventure movies are directed by men.
Mhm.
It's just the way it always has been. Not that it will continue to be so, but that's what it always has been. So let's just change up the field a little bit. Let's just give them something else to think about.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
my last published book is called We Have Shadows Too, and it's about a girl with a disorder that she doesn't realize she has. She's blocked out some memories, and the theme of the book is, can you hide a secret even from yourself? And some of my most insightful reviews were by men. And a couple of the men actually told me, thank you for writing this book, because it gives me insight into something that I've wondered about. Because unfortunately, women do tend to suffer from some more of the severe emotional disorders, just
Mhm.
it must be our neurological makeup, than men. So men may run into a partner or a spouse or a sister or a mother who has something like that, and it is important that they do have help, because we know Hollywood isn't going to give them anything
Yeah, no.
realistic.
Nope.
It's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is I wanted a realistic portrayal of the protagonist or what was going on, the counselor, everything like that. So it was really gratifying to have those men write those reviews, approach me, and so I know that they are out there too, and they are interested in this perspective for themselves.
Yeah, definitely. Do you? I'm wondering, I'm trying to decide if it's something I do or not, but when you go into a bookshop and you pick up a book, if you don't know the author, do you ever look and consider the gender and what they're writing as a genre? Like, does that
Nope.
I
I
look at
just
the
read
ever
most
pop
books
cover.
up for
about,
you?
Yeah, I don't tend to, though I do find that I tend to gravitate toward books written by women for the fact that it seems like a book that I am going to enjoy more, because hopefully it has that fullness of character in the women that I'm going to want to read about. But I know when there's a book that I find interesting, and if it's written by a man, I'm like, okay, sweet, let's just see. So it's more about the blurb. It's more about like what the book is about, and then the stuff that
Mhm.
I tend to want to read tends to be written by women. But it doesn't really affect whether I want to read the book or not.
Yeah, I agree. It's cover. Ooh, pretty. Turn it over. Blurb. Ooh,
yes,
interesting. Oh, go. Oh, right. Oh, I'll give it a
yes.
go. There we go. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
That's nice. I think that's a nice thing to be able to say in this day and age now, definitely.
Hmm.
Unique covers for sure.
Oh
Mm.
yeah.
Because
Oh,
if you
yes.
go to certain genres, they're very much the same. And then the advice in the writers group I'm in is go to a bookstore and make your cover like theirs. And I was like, no,
Because
I'm
then it'll get
I'm not gonna.
lost.
You can't make me.
Yeah, no, it's true. And I had something come out recently. One of the most unpopular colors for a book is purple.
Oh really?
Yeah, and I'm yet to actually. So there you go. So if anybody watching this can tell me why, but there are very few books out there, with purple covers, and
Interesting.
it's yeah. I've had writers say, whether different publishing options they've got out, and they've been very specific about the colors that they want to use, and it's all colors that fit in. And you can probably see from my bookcase at one point, I think it was about 5 years ago, there was a massive thing about black
Oh yeah.
covers
Most
for
of
them
my
all
books
to.
back there are black.
Now I am checking out your
Yeah,
books, and there isn't purple.
I've got, and now see, I had to go and find two, and so I did find, and I that became my thing of, instead of reading by genre, reading by this, that, and the other, how am I going to pick a book? I was like, I've got to read one with a purple cover.
I love
That's
it.
And
awesome.
Why
but I
not?
actually ended up finding a great series, one of my little guilty pleasures, which is Assistant to the Villain. And that
Oh
series. And
yeah.
the only
Yeah.
reason, the reason I started reading it was it had a purple cover, and I was like, I'm determined to go out there and find purple covered books.
Please.
That's great.
Have you
That's
read
what
You've
Emily
got,
Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies?
yeah, but the amount of times that, we've got, you can imagine all of our TBR list, or even the things that we think about reading, it's like, how do you pick a book?
Yeah.
And it was like, I'm gonna go for something a bit different, and I'm gonna read by color for a while. So yeah, but
I have
it
one
was
purple cover back there. It's called Emily Wilde's Encyclopedia of Fairies.
there you go. So yeah, there's,
Totally
but
fits the
I'm
vibe.
sure we're gonna get
Now I
inundated with purple covers.
now I have a design idea where you arrange your bookshelf by the colors of the
Of the
spine.
rainbow.
Right, I did that. I'll send you the photo over. I actually did it. I had one of those moments. I was waiting for something, a call to happen. I was like, oh, I need to do something, and I did that. But the only problem is then when you buy new books, you've got to try and slot them into the right color, and you end up
Yep.
having to move every single
Oh,
book around
no,
around the
yeah.
shelf. And in the end, I was like, I can't do
Maybe
this
a
anymore.
small
So
display case, just here's
yeah,
my representation of of the
a
color.
little display of them. Yeah, but it does look pretty when you do it. But yeah, okay. So before we go off onto cover design and everything, just lastly, is there any more advice that you would give to aspiring female writers stepping into the industry?
Just do it.
Yeah.
Stop listening to others tell you that's not good enough. I submitted my first book to over 100 agents and publishers. And when the final one came back, I went, well, guess I'm doing it myself. Never once in my mind did I say, oh, now it won't be available to the world. I was just like, oh, well, I guess that means I get to design the cover. I get to design everything about it. I get to say who stays in the story, who doesn't. I
Mhm.
get to decide what the characters look like, how they feel. I can't be told anything. And I made my own publishing company and I did it.
I
Just
did
do
the
it.
same
That's
thing.
awesome.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of someone else changing my story, my cover.
Oh, yeah.
I like control.
Yeah.
So I did
Yeah.
the same thing. I opened my own publishing company years ago, and I've published 7, 8 books. I can't quite remember because I've done health books, and I've done fiction, nonfiction, and it's wonderful. So there's so many options that don't listen to all these boo-hoo, poor me, can't do it, it's difficult. Just push them
It is
aside.
not easy.
And
I
write,
have to admit.
write. If you love to
I
write,
made a
then
checkoff
write.
list. There's
And
nothing.
you can publish so
I've even
easily
thought about
nowadays.
making one for like indie authors. There's nothing out there to help them. I mean, the only thing here in the States that are not about out is Ingram Spark. Like that's the only one that's in every single place. And right now, it's just a thing. It's just a thing trying to get. And some bookstores will order your book, which I've been very grateful that a lot of places around here have just been taking them from me. And but then as I want to expand, Ingram Spark is literally the only monopoly for authors, and their pricing is about to change in April. And I think we make like a buck or two a book, like if that, if you're lucky. And
There,
you're having to
there is
charge over
another
$30.
there is another option. Have you heard of Book Vault? They're out of the UK,
Yeah,
and
but they don't
they
deliver. They none of the bookstores in America, um,
uh,
they're not an orderable site. You can
some of
print your book through them. Yeah, I
okay,
use them.
yeah.
I do Book Vault, the usual Amazon.
I
And
think
that's I
I do get your frustration. I really do.
right?
But I do think it is, we are in a massive transitional period at the moment of from
Yeah.
from traditional to indie, that, and there's
Huge.
been this massive gap between them, and that is the amount of times that I have recommended to a writer of, look, yes, if traditional is the way you want to go, that's fine, but you've got to understand the more control and everything you're going to have over everything now if you go down the
Yes.
indie route. And
Yeah.
really there's not that much that you're gaining from traditional these days, and I really would be surprised if if even in 5 years' time that there wasn't something has got to open up soon to take on, to take on Ingram and even take on Amazon with regards to the amount that they're both charging with royalties these days. And something will come in soon. And you can actually see it practically day by day going from that path of traditional all the way to indie. And it's amazing to see, and how much it's opening up to just to all different writers, and not what some publisher thinks is going to sell because there's some celebrity who's done this and we get to read about their life. And it's, you just get such a mix. And I think about, our writers from Scott Editorial, the different material and everything that you produce, and it's just there's just so much variety out there that that traditional are going to want to stick in this this little bucket of norm that they've got, and you just don't get that.
And I hate that they ask for book comps. I don't know, you tell me, have you ever heard about a female Spartan a book series? No, there's not. So when they ask for that on forms and I would leave it blank, that's an automatic buy, because they can't easily sell your book. You're not in an already established genre, which to me is crazy. Isn't that the whole point of writing, is to push our boundaries? Like,
right, exactly.
Why else would Labyrinth, the movie, be made with David Bowie if not to push our boundaries? Like, come on.
I agree. Right, ladies, thank you so much for joining me on this call today, and to International Women's Day. I hope all you women out there have a wonderful day, and I would like to see lots more female writers coming my way, because it's amazing to see what you're all doing. So from me at Scott Editorial, thank you very much for joining me today.
Amy.
Thank you.
And I'll see you all soon. Take care.
Have a good day.
Bye. And you.
Bye.
Bye.